So much stuff already at the beginning. What's it called? I forgot to change everything. The stream name, the category, and now it's not letting me change anything. But yeah, hi Cactus. Oh yeah, I'm unmuted. Okay. That happened though. I don't know how to change anything right now. I'm trying to fix it. Okay, okay. Mhm. This is a visual novel game I found, and then I'm gonna play Our Life After. I wanted to try this one out though. It's just a prologue. Let me change everything. There we go. All right. I was just looking on itch.io for a bunch of visual novel games, because I just felt like playing them today. All right. Let's see how this let's see what this one's about. Everything's working, right? Game audio working. All right. Um, I sing of brooks, of blossoms, birds, and bowers, of April, May, of June, and July flowers. I think it was bowers then, of bowers. I sing of maypoles, hawk carts, wassails, wakes, of bridegrooms, brides, and of their bridal cakes. I write of use of love and have access by these to sing of cleanly wantonness. I sing of dews of rains and piece by piece, of balm, of oil, of spice, and ambergris. I don't know some of these words. Oh my gosh. I think of times trans-shifting, and I write how roses first came red and lilies white. I write of groves of twilights, and I sing the court of Mab and of the fairy king. I write of hell, I sing, and ever shall, of heaven and hope to have it after all. The argument of his book, Robert Herrick. Tomorrow will be done. Oh my god, this is loud. Unless it's just loud in my ear. Um, is the audio okay, Cactus? In a few minutes, we will be arriving at the Mokuzai terminal. Okay. Eri glances up from her phone to look at the signs inside the train. Sure enough, Mokuzai is displayed in large electronic orange characters. She takes out her earbuds and taps her phone to pause the audiobook playing, pink fake nail clacking against the screen. After ensuring she has everything with her in her pocket and bags, she stretches out her limbs, letting out a soft hum of satisfaction. The journey here was quite the chaotic one. Whether dealing with the poorly concealed gawking of passerby, getting lost in the gigantic waves of bodies pushing her to and fro, or leaving all her belongings on the express train, she is exhausted with it all. Sitting here in this empty, run-down train with nothing but its rattling ambience, not ambience, to accompany her, a refreshing feeling washes over her like a gentle tide. Eri loves nights in Tokyo filled with bright, colorful lights, bustling crowds, and an undying liveliness. Sorry if I read wrong. I don't know what's wrong. I can't read today. But there is something she misses about quiet nights in Mukuzai, where the only thing you can see are your own 2 feet. One reason she can indubitably name for this is that she misses her family back home. Visions of their small fishing business by the sea floats in her mind, and a warm feeling spreads throughout her chest. I hope that they've been doing all right without me, Eri smiles to herself, fiddling with the whale phone charm that they gifted her on the day of her departure to Tokyo. Playing with her charm like this strikes a chord from deep within, the action vaguely reminding her of something, someone, pulling forth a face she hasn't thought about in a long time to the surface. Her mind is suddenly filled with visions of short, black hair that danced in the wind and stoic yet gentle eyes. An image that was nearly forgotten until these memories of her time in Mokuzai came flooding back. It was probably illogical how often and how easily Eri linked her hometown with that particular verdant gaze. Whenever Eri happened to come across her, Ashikaga Shion by her lonesome, the other would be playing with her magical girl phone charm just like this, seemingly unbothered by the fact that she was alone. And yet, if Eri squinted, she could find an air of sadness past that vacancy, at the edge of that isolated sphere. This is a really pre-made character for a visual novel. I see. Eri rubs a thumb over her now warmed whale phone charm, allowing herself to reminisce over the oh my god, enigmatic individual. Under the blaze of the setting summer sun, amidst the cries of evening cicadas, I forgot how to say that. Oh my gosh, cicadas, I think. One of their school's mysteries, albeit a rather asinine one, was unrevealed. And on the day Eri was set into motion, that was a lot of words, but that's what visual novels are. Eri explored a multitude of hobbies growing up, and field happened to be the one to stick when she explored the different clubs in her first year of high school. With that being said, when Eri pursued something, she would always put 100% into it. She genuinely loved running. She loved it more than anything in the world at the time. Everyone always said that she had a one-track mind, but it was thanks to that one-track mind that she brushed off any such mean-spirited statements. Which is why, even when carrying a big stack of yellow cones to the sports field, she couldn't help but run, the June sun beating against her back, even in the early morning. As she started placing cones throughout the field, she heard the rattling of the fence behind her. Turning around, she was greeted with the sight of her little brother, Masaru, climbing over it. Masaru. She threw the rest of the cones aside and sprinted towards him. Even with her speed, he'd already reached for the top of the fence by the time she was there. He then jumped, grabbed onto the nearby tree branch, and promptly, swinging down from it, landed nimbly on his feet. How many times have I told you not to come into the school that way? You could just sneak in through the gates. It's faster, he shrugged. Eri had no idea where he got his... Oh my, I've never seen that word in my life. This is more of a comic than anything. Yeah. I don't know how to say that, my bad. Attitude from, and she had even less of an idea where he got the inkling to dye the ends of his hair. Not missing a beat, he took off his blue Randoseru backpack and brought out a lunchbox wrapped in fish pattern cloth. The tag on the corner of said cloth, brusque. The tag on the corner of said cloth had Eri's name on it. You forgot your lunch this morning. Thanks, Miss Masaru. She sighed, I can't read, and took it from his hands. Eri was relied on for her preparation of the entire family's lunches, and had been carried away in the whirlwind of busy work. She quickly unwrapped the cloth and checked on the box's contents, relieved to find each carefully prepared side dish remained accounted for. Any desire to scold her brother dissipated, and instead she almost burst into tears at the sight. All right, adios, he saluted and began to climb up the tree, but Eri spotted something stuck to the bottom of his sneaker and swiftly grabbed his ankle. Wait! What? He quietly hissed back, backlit by the sunlight beyond the tree leaves. Trusting her brother's grip on the branches, she turned his foot over and stared bewilderedly. Why can't I speak today? Okay. At the dusty sole. Or more specifically, something stuck to it. What? I said. Eri hesitated for some reason, opting to shield the offending item from her brother's supposedly innocent eyes. In the heat of the moment, she thought she might have also disposed of it before he could unconsciously track bits into his elementary school. It's a cigarette, a new voice said matter-of-factly. Having nearly jumped out of her skin, Eri checked over her shoulder to identify the speaker. Ninja. Standing there was the track team captain, Tsukimi. She wouldn't bat an eyelash at Masaru, being used to him randomly appearing at club practices every now and then, but Eri couldn't help but panic. I don't know. Okay, I need water. My throat. 1 second. Captain, this isn't what you think, Eri stammered wildly as she tried to get the cigarette out of Tsukimi's line of sight. Her effort only led to Masaru's foot slamming into her face as it jerked from being twisted about unnaturally. There's no use in hiding it. Look at your feet, Aries still gingerly pinching the crushed butt between her fingers, did as she was told and let her eyes fall to the grassy patch under her feet. She was surprised to find cigarette remains scattered all around. I've been seeing these collect by this tree for the past few days. I did mean to report to the teacher, but it slipped my mind. What with the track meet being just around the corner? Huh. Ari nodded in understanding, relieved to have avoided an unnecessary lecture. Well, you should get it done sooner than later. There's no way I'm letting some hooligans get away with throwing cigarettes at this poor tree. Agreed. Which is why you'll be going in my stead. Eh? You were the one who locked up the equipment shed yesterday, right? I was just about to set up some hurdles when I noticed equipment is missing, Tsukimi stated, looking straight at Eri with scrutinizing gaze. One of the vaulting poles. What? No way. You're saying it was my fault? We're also missing track spikes and jumping boxes, Obara, Aries underclassman, and shot put extraordinaire added helpfully. I've never heard shot put. Tsukimi raised a brow and simply placed her fist on her hips admonishingly. Eri began to sweat under her stare. There's no way I'm scatterbrained enough to have left the shed unlocked, she thought. However, the captain's cold eyes led her to doubt her own memory. Her suspicion wouldn't have been baseless either. Last month it was a whole pack of relay batons. This was particularly serious, however, as they only had one other extra vaulting pole. Tsukimi finally relented, turning away with a sigh. I'm not trying to be mean. In circumstances like this, I have to consider all options. Either way, the others will more than likely place the blame on you. So it's in your best interest to figure out the equipment issue. Might as well report the cigarettes at the office while you're there. Having said her piece, Tsukimi left and began setting up for practice. Obara gave Eri a shrug and shortly followed suit. Seriously, why are you so forgetful? You're still here? Eri's gaze followed Masaru's words, pointing to his foot, which she'd been holding onto the entire time, squeezing it as if it was a stress ball. Once she released his leg with a murmured "oops," she could clearly see the handprint she had left imprinted on his skin. Now freed from her grasp, Masaru climbed up the tree like a monkey, and once he found stable footing on top of the metal fence, he called out to his sister. I know you're gonna beat yourself up over a small mistake like this, so just clear your name and everything will be fine. Fight for a better day. That's what you always say, right? Masaru flashed a small smile before hopping down from the fence and sauntering off. After a few seconds of watching him leave and making sure he was walking the correct direction towards the elementary school, Eri laughed through her nose and jogged toward the field, helping set up the rest of the equipment as more track team members filtered in. Alright, we'll look into it, the teacher, Saki-sensei, said while jotting down the final notes of the report. Picking up on his dismissive tone, Eri reiterated the price of the missing tools. Oh no, I get it. It's just, considering how things have turned out in the past, he trailed off and turned towards the window, airing himself out by the shirt collar. Man, sure is hot these days. Oi, Koizumi. Since you're here, why don't we discuss your science grades? Eri unconsciously jerked back at the sudden, full frontal attack. Oh, what she would subject herself to in her obedience to the captain. Pop quiz for you. How many Earths would it take to fit into the sun? I'll give you a hint. The sun is massive. Hey, I almost forgot. You know that plum fence I mean, that plum tree by the fence. Um, we found some cigarettes around there. Isn't that tree like a national treasure or something? Cigarettes, huh? He stretched and after leaning back in his chair, let out a short but exhausted groan. Must be Sakai, either her or the other one, the bad Ashikaga. The bad Ashikaga? Oh, sorry, there's two Ashikagas in the school, so I say that to avoid confusion. You should know her, the track team dropout, he sighed. No relation or anything, by the way. Eri then recalled something she'd heard a few months ago on the track field. Did you hear? Did you hear? What? Apparently Ashikaga has started hanging out with that delinquent girl. What? You mean the tea ceremony girl? No way. Right? I wonder how things ended up like that, I mean. What a waste of talent, huh? Hey, that's enough rumor mongering, you two. You'll never break your records wasting time like that. Once the bell signifying lunch period rang out, Eri went straight to investigating. She'd already confirmed that her friends, with whom she'd usually eat lunch, knew very little about the two suspects pointed out by Saki-sensei. She'd never imagined she could manage to scarf down a massive lunch like hers while sleuthing about, and was quite impressed with herself afterwards. Oh, the tea ceremony girl. Oh, my phone's blocking that. If anyone stole your track and field equipment, it'd be her. Yeah, that crazy girl threw Saki-sensei's lunchbox out of the school. The, the occult club? You've never heard of it? How's that even possible? Your former prince is part of it, you know? I see them make trouble all over the place, so I'm not really sure where they hang out. You could try asking that Hatogaki Koji guy, though. He's in the same class as Ashikaga. I think he's class rep. I see them talking every so often. Hatogaki Koji. Eri, remembered him making a big deal about justice and such during his run for student president. Ashikagi? I mean, Kaga? Why ask me? I heard from a reliable source that you two talk from time to time. You're the class rep, aren't you? It makes sense that you'd be keeping tabs on, you know. Uh, no, he said very slowly while glancing around. Wait, you're not? But my reliable source. People just assume that because I pick up on our actual representative Slack, it's a real hassle. Huh? Hold on, does that mean you're actually friends with Ashikaga? Even better. You've gotta know where she hangs out at lunch at least. Yeah, it seems that way. Friends? I'm not really sure I'd say that either. Hatogaki became noticeably fidgety, a bead of sweat trickling down his temple. I guess I've noticed that every time lunch starts, she makes a beeline for the door and goes upstairs. But that's it, he mumbled, scratching his cheek while staring intently at the floor. The stairs? Either she was heading to the third year classrooms or she would climb all the way to the top, the rooftop. Gotcha, thanks. So you really don't know anything else? How about someone called Sakai? I heard she was part of the tea ceremony club before it closed down last year. I don't know anything about that gorilla. Wow, that's rude. Now excuse me, I should be heading back to class. And hiding his unnaturally pale face, he shuffled off robotically. For some reason, she could sense some sort of shame from him, but didn't dwell on it. Almost breaking into a run in the hallway, something for which she's gotten into trouble many times in the past, she made her way up the stairs 2 steps at a time. Thanks to team members and classmates that made it their business to keep track of such things, she on her part had no idea the school even had such a club until just moments ago. Eri managed to find herself face to face with one of the named delinquents on the stairs leading to the rooftop. So, are you accusing me of stealing it? No, it's nothing like that. She certainly didn't look the part of the delinquent that'd been built up. Even so, Eri began to falter under the pressure of Sakai's uh, gaze, which she could swear was piercing right through her half-baked lie. Such an icy cold glare, Eri thought. Pretty girl right too. Maybe all those rumors were true after all. Well, I'm listening. She'd enacted it in her own mind, over and over on the way. You hooligan, she'd shout out, pointing a finger of justice at the evildoer who'd melt into a puddle of confession on the spot. Eri inwardly scoffed at herself for thinking for even a moment she could stand up for any cause, and resorted to Plan B, the much more realistic course of action. You're a part of an occult club, right? What of it? I was hoping you could do something to help me find it, you know? Don't you guys, consult ghosts or something? Eri stammered, saying the first thing she could think of. No. I can't say we've done anything along those lines. Though our club is still young. Eh? Well, that's fine. What do you do, if you don't mind me asking? Nothing, really. If you want, maybe I can forward your request to our club president. Your story is exactly the type to get him all riled up. Oh, better yet, you can tell him yourself. Eri reluctantly followed the head of cascading hair. Oh, wait, what was that noise? Thank you, Crow, for subscribing. Oh, thank you. That was the new model is made by a friend. Yeah. It has different things too. If I can remember all the buttons that I set for it, but I don't think I can. Here, I can just do this. There's this one. And there's this one. And this one. Yep, that's it. But thank you for the sub. And welcome. Eri reluctantly followed, oh wait, I already read that, down the hallway to an unused classroom, only to find the door wouldn't open no matter how hard they'd pulled. Sakai pressed her ear against to listen in, stepped back with a sigh, and then tapped her foot impatiently. I can come back another day. Ignoring her, Sakai started banging on the door and called out in a loud voice. Hey, Prez! I know you're in there! Open up! Hey, are you really sure he's in? Call it a supernatural intuition. Be right back. Please wait right here. Sakai returned with a paper fan and something wrapped in tinfoil. Just watch quietly. Sakai set that something down on the ground and started fanning the scent towards the door. Sniffing, Eri finally identified that something as a baked potato. Ooh, a baked potato. Soon enough, the door unlocked and slid open. You just can't resist, can you? An unamusing, sleepy-looking boy stumbled out of the dark room, but froze upon realizing he'd been tricked. Eri silently played spectator as the probable president lifted his eyes, only to be greeted by a wicked grin. With the flick of the wrist, Sakai dramatically clacked her fan shut, causing the boy opposite her to blink. Don't be too angry with me, Prez. You wouldn't answer any of our calls, so this is the only way I could get through to you. I won't reprimand you, as long as I get to eat that, he said heavily. Pretty. You just think they're all pretty. Meanwhile, I'm just thinking, man, I want a baked potato now. Help yourself. As if a ravenous wolf, he tore off the tinfoil and dove face first into the piping hot potato. Face first. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Sakurai-san, he said with a burnt tongue. She grinned wildly. Happy in... She grinned widely. That's Sakai, actually. But feel free to call me whatever you like. Is that any good? Bien. Sakai slaps him across the shoulder ostentatiously. Well, Prez, you look rather relaxed this evening. I didn't interrupt a nice dream or anything, did I? I get the feeling that it was nice, but I can barely remember it. He took another bite. Feeling Sakai's stare, he slowed his chewing and then swallowed nervously, shifting his eyes between the two girls in front of him. Eri straightened her posture a bit, as he finally seemed awake enough to notice her presence. You're not expecting something in return for this, are you? Oh, nothing more than your gentle counsel. Sakai then patted Eri on the shoulder, prompting her to speak. By this point, it'd be beyond Sakai to try and recall the details of Eri's request. Excuse me. My name is Koizumi. I was hoping you would listen to my request. A request for the Occult Club. I'm afraid our club meetings are every other day other than today, Thursday, and we sometimes do weekends. He turned towards Sakai. I would have expected you to know this. I did think this might interest you. Hear her out, why don't you? We're not exactly the request-taking type of club. It's about time our dinky little group made a contribution to society, don't you think? Wait, did I read that right? Contribution. Yeah, I read that right. Please. Harry bowed deeply, facing the floor. Looking down at her, he scratched the back of his head and yawned. I somehow doubt Sakai-san, of all people, would know what interests me, but I'll hear you out. Really? Thank you. Eri relayed all the facts about the missing track equipment to him. As she spoke, she noted how the boy's half-lidded eyes grew more and more vigilant, and how he began to nod intently throughout her explanation. Come to think of it, I think that's one of the 7 mysteries of our school, a ghost that steals athletic equipment. I believe you've missed some details, or possibly added some. I don't remember anything quite as lame as that. Him. It is a very serious problem. In fact, we were studying those mysteries, though we were going in order, and that's the 5th one in memory, if memory serves. We haven't even made a dent in the first one. Takeda began to walk off in the middle of her sentence. Are there? Wait. Huh? I just heard that name now. I don't know which character that is. Hey, where are you going? Are we taking this request or not? Okay, he's Takeda. Okay. I didn't remember his name being that. Of course we are, but not recklessly. Have you seen our other member today? Not today, no. Last I saw her was yesterday. Needed her to fix something up and she completely ignored me. Sakai shifted her eyes to the ceiling. Something tells me she won't be up for this either. And why might that be? Well, considering who's asking. She was interrupted again, this time by a yawn. First, caffeine. Oh, where are my manners? Manners. I'm Takeda. I look forward to working with you. Or did I not know his name at all? I don't know. On account of the summer heat, Eri already spurned the idea of a visit to the school rooftop. But with the potential meeting with Ashikaga weighing on her mind, her steps became even heavier. The loss of the Formula E of the track team wasn't explosive in the least, but had it been so, things might be easier right now. Instead of any true bitterness or hard feelings, a mere indifference had pervaded, which at least on Eri's part, could only be perceived as a constant state of limbo in which unspoken feelings were buried and stored away to burden those involved. Feelings that felt as though they would last for the rest of their high school careers. It wasn't until the quiet drama of last year's incident that Ari fully realized just how thank you, sorry, daft she could be when picking up on social cues. At first, she thought it all only a minor setback, certainly not one she couldn't overcome if she'd only worked hard enough. That naive, youthful confidence was thrown to the wind, the indomitable spirit that she'd believed herself to possess torn to shreds by the unending, soul-draining apathy offered by each of her peers. It was only that year, with the recruitment of fresh first-years, that things finally started to look up, though Ari had yet to shed the title Tiger of the track team. That is to say, she still played the role of pack mule, the muscle, in any attempt to keep spirits up. So, I'm at 2K. Oh, really? Oh, that's great. What is the thing again? Oh, 5K. Okay. You're far. Yay. All right. I always forget that's a redeem until someone brings it up. Where was I? So much for the incident, as of the person Ashikaga herself, outside of the loud congratulations and other routine sports team proceedings. Ari's interactions with her were relatively sparse. Still, Ari harbored nothing but admiration for her, though said admiration was understandably tempered by the captain's barely hidden coldness toward their former star. As much as Ari would have liked to lead them to recon reconciliation, any attempt at forcing it would feel only like cruelly poking at open wounds. All this to say, she had no idea how to approach Ashikaga, much less inquire into the cigarette situation. No, she thought to herself. As long as I treat her like anyone else, things will work out. She went out in her mind as they climbed, again, the steps towards the roof, convincing herself that if she could leverage her admittably excessive curiosity about Ashikaga, perhaps that would break down any barriers. Psyching herself up inwardly led to nearly tripping over a step outwardly, interrupting some quiet, trivial banter between her two guides. I'm okay, she cried. Takeda helped Eri stabilize, while Sakai, who'd let out a short huff of amusement, made her way to the door. You know, I was under the impression that the rooftop was off limits. It's a bit of a miracle that we managed to get permission. I guess you could put it that way, she sighed. Don't know why I fought so hard for it in the first place. Hardly spend any time up there. Do I even want to know what happened? Eri thought to herself. Takeda, as if reading her mind, continued. Long story short, um, it took a lot of persistence, and just the right amount of exhaustion on the teacher's part. If anyone asks, we are looking for UFOs up here, alright? Ari's eyes narrowed as her vision was enveloped in the brilliant azure of the sky. Ashikaga turned at the sound, wasting no movements as always. As Ari watched this, she was struck by the restful expression worn on her face, which communicated a restful or perhaps wasteful year out of the limelight. Put another way, it was as though she didn't have the extra energy to spend on movement in the first place. After a short burst of wind provided some much-needed temperature regulation, Ari shook herself out of her observations and bowed towards Ashikaga. Good evening. Ashikaga could only blink at the sudden address, though she could barely hear the words that came out of Ari's mouth. She can have short hair. Her dress code is lax. Wait, is that not allowed? Takeda stepped into the binding heat. Glad you're here. Let's solve the fifth mystery. Not today, Ashikaga sharply interjected. Just as quickly as the trio arrived, Ashikaga strode past them, and just before making her way through the door, turned back to say, "I'm sorry." With a short nod to the club's client, she fled down the stairs. Eri perplexedly turned back to the remaining occult club members, not sure of how to react to the nonchalant shrug the two shared. "So much for that," Takeda said easily. "Well, if she's busy, she's busy. I can't speak. Things will be a bit more difficult without her help, but I can't surrender now after that potato. Real." Usually just like hair length, color, and styles. I see. Eri was certainly discouraged by Ashikaga's curt exit, anticlimactic to say the least. She couldn't help but link the girl's departure with her own sudden appearance. However, Sakai and Takeda seemed to take no mind to her attitude, as though that was business as usual. She supposed she could take this as the reassurance of otherwise. So, a pause. The president peered into Eri's face, hoping to find some hint of the name that evaded him. "It's Koizumi," the girls reminded him in unison, Sakai muttering an extra forgetful under her breath. "Ah, right, so Koizumi. If I'm understanding this correctly, you're missing track equipment? No? Equipment. I can't speak, oh my god. Mind pointing out where the equipment shed is? It's over here." Eri motioned for the two to follow her as she jogged to the far side of the roof, pointing at the small building with her feet planted on the ledge of the railing. "I see." Takeda copied her, leaning dangerously over the railing himself and surveying the field. "Do you see something?" "I'm looking for possible blind spots and hidden paths that a thief could use to infiltrate the shed," he responded without a hint of humor in his voice whatsoever. Eri blinked at him in confusion. "A thief? Shouldn't we be looking for a ghost?" We don't believe in that stuff. We're the occult club in name only." Sakai waved a hand and laughed. Eri looked back and forth between the two club members, puzzlement clear on her face. "Seriously? Even Ashikaga?" "Especially Ashikaga." Sakai snorted. Why she joined this club in the first place? Still a complete mystery. I've asked her a million questions, but I still feel like I hardly know her myself. Huh? Eri looked up toward the sky and blankly watched the clouds pass by. She'd momentarily forgotten why she was up here, swept up by her own emotions as she was. Despite their claims, spending time up here with this club certainly made it feel as though she was becoming cursed. "The plan," she shouted out inside her head, her eyes widening like saucers. She discreetly glanced at Sakai, who was now checking out the field alongside Takeda. A metaphorical light bulb flashed above Eri's head before she gestured toward the very tree in question. "Actually, the track team captain and I found some cigarettes around the plum tree. If you don't mind, maybe we could investigate that as well?" I suppose they could be related," Takeda pondered, rubbing his chin with his index finger. "We'll go down and take a closer look after school then." "Thank you." Eri smiled at him as they headed toward the roof door, glad that he still retained his sober enthusiasm. Eri looked back at Sakai over her shoulder to study her reactions, but, as Eri half expected, the girl had the usual caddish smile plastered on her face. She certainly didn't seem to be displaying any nervous tics, but Eri told herself not to be fooled. Something told her that this type of girl likely found enjoyment in the chaos she stewed. The Takeda's friend? Sure. The three reconvened as soon as classes were over, and once they gathered around the tree, the club president went straight to work. After some initial inspection, he offered his rough report. This had apparently gone unnoticed by those privy to the littering issue. There were small dents in the tree that were just deep enough to be identified as deliberately made. Upon confirming with Eri, the size of the dents seemed to match the missing track spikes. Perhaps someone used those spikes in a cursing ritual. Have you heard of the Ox Hour shrine visit? If I recall correctly, that needs to be done 7 times in a row for the effect to take place, so if we're lucky, we'll have time to catch them in the act. I see, Eri groaned in desperation. Who would do something like this? Isn't there such thing as a ritual that doesn't ruin public property? I've heard of that ritual, Sakai said, sidestepping Eri's fuming. Doesn't it involve nails and straw dolls? How exactly would track spikes? Suddenly Takeda brought up a finger, silencing her. Hold that thought. What? Sakai asked, her expression communicating that she's already given up on finishing said thought. Takeda surveyed the surroundings, turning in a few circles when his eyes seemed to land on the school building. I feel as though someone is watching us. Huh? A chill ran through Eri's spine. She only then realized how weak she really was when it came to horror stories. Where? Takeda seemed deep in thought, tilting his head as he continued observing the building with a careful eye. It was then that the sound of the approaching footsteps took their attention away from the supposed presence, snapping both Takeda and Eri out of their tense postures. You brought the occult club? You really lack sense sometimes. You are aware of the identity of the members that make up this club, right? It's me I'm watching. Eri could offer no response, instead looking down and thinking of what to say. How to communicate her plan, unraveling as it was, in bringing them here. Saki-sensei wasn't much help, so hey, cut her some slack. I mean, if anyone can find the culprits, it'd be fellow deviants, right? She playfully bowed towards them. Please hurry, I can't perform without my lucky pole. Well, I've got my suspicions as well, but thanks for coming out here anyway. Come on, Captain, you too. I mean, no offense, she said, frowning. I wouldn't be surprised if Ashikaga was smoking around here out of spite. I can't help but worry about her. Sakai grinned, jerking upward as if I can't read, as if her interest was finally caught. My, you sound a bit bitter. A slight flush rose to Sakimi's face, but she maintained her stoic body language. If you're implying I'm upset you took her from us, you're very mistaken. Just look at her in her current state. I'd say it's a good thing she quit. Captain, Eri's voice rose, but as usual didn't affect anything. So you say, Takeda cut in. From what I've seen, she still seems plenty fast. Regardless if that's how you think of things, then I'm glad. No need for any hard feelings between our clubs. Then he, in a slow and relaxed gait, stepped past Eri. This way to the equipment shed, right? Oh, yeah. Someone has to be messing with me, Eri thought. It would have been better if I was just standing watch here the entire time. Yep. That's all of them, Avara reported with a what? Weird smile. The equipment back. Uh, the equipment's back. That's all that matters. Tsukimi then made a point of giving Eri the same dirty look from this morning. We'll have to remember to keep a closer eye on this shed, all right? Of course, Eri nodded, then turned to address the occult club. I'm sorry for bringing you here for nothing. It's all right. If it's all right with you, Takeda began casually. I like to keep investigating. Could be a deliberate, possibly mean-spirited prank. Are you sure? I mean, if it's just a prank. No stopping him now that he's like this. His curiosity is peeved. Sakai picked up and inspected the previously missing vaulting pole. Personally, I'm a bit more concerned with those cigarettes myself. I don't like being caught up in false accusations. But seriously, who'd be dumb enough to smoke on school grounds? Eri side-eyed at the girl at this. As she says, I don't do things in halves. We're doing it of our own violation, so no need for polite gratitude. No, no, either way, I. As her voice trailed off, Takeda stepped out of the shed. Sakai followed shortly after him, gently dropping the pole in Tsukimi's hands. The three track members glanced at one another. Why don't I grab us some snacks? The kind that'll cool you guys off. Captain, do I have your permission? Huh, that's fine with me. Just don't get sidetracked, okay? With that all settled, Tsukimi turned the pole and, prior to taking her own leave, issued an order to Obara. I'm going to return this to Hiragi. Um, you better stick it out and keep an eye out around here. Takeda is determined, yeah. Um, her eyes narrowed once more, signaling her intent. Yes, Captain, he chuckled with the usual sarcastic tone. Oh, I didn't use a sarcastic tone. As Eri, who just finished a short chat with Abara, stepped out of the dinky shed, she spotted the two occult club members crouched beside the same tree. She jogged up to them and then patted Takeda on the back rapturously. I'm going to get snacks. Her name just appeared. Would you, like anything? Takeda shot up. What caused Eri to take a step backwards, however, was Sakai, who was holding a cigarette between her lips. Uh, it's not a new one, Sakai stated simply, as if that answered anything. Eri just stared blankly at her. I just want to compare brands, she continued, only making things more confusing. Eri's brain felt fuzzy. I wouldn't blame you for suspecting her. She most certainly acts the part. I really am tired of got more equipment. Yeah. Eri thought for a moment. Was the original reason why she was doing all this, but wait, I can't read. That was the original reason why she was doing all this, but after seeing Sakai and Takeda defend Ashikaga when all Eri could do was stand there helplessly, she couldn't help but want to believe otherwise now. She felt pathetic about her wishy-washy frame of mind. Hi, hi Dakar. Welcome to the stream. Um, Truthfully, I did suspect you initially, Sakai-san. Now we're being honest. How are you doing? Um, but now somehow I get the feeling that you wouldn't do anything that awful, even if you are a little crazy. Eri wrung her hands together nervously, unacquainted with being so blunt, especially straight to the person of interest's face. To her relief, all Sakai did was bark out a laugh, and even Takeda's lips quirked in amusement. You should probably spend more time with us before making that judgment. Wait, which judgment? Anyway, I'll go for a Mont Blanc. I. Good. Okay, thank you for the lurk. Yep, he is smiling. Soon enough, Eri came jogging back to the field, bags of snacks rustling in her hands. She distributed all of the items, save for those picked out for the two occult club members, who were nowhere to be seen. Eri asked the nearest runner where they went and was informed that a teacher caught sight of Sakai with a cigarette in her mouth, after which the two instantaneously broke off in completely different directions. Tsukimi once again appeared behind Eri without so much as a sound. They really are unequivocally, I don't know how to say that. Delinquents, aren't they? Equivocally? Her shoulders shook with laughter. I've never seen something so ridiculous. Even I find it hard to imagine Ashikaga hanging out with such an unruly crew, but it's not as though any of us knew. Yeah, there's, I saw that. I've seen that like a while ago, and I was like, that's very random. An unruly crew, but it's not as though any of us knew much about her in the first place. Eri found herself not being able to say anything back. In fact, she had no clue what she would want to convey to this individual. She did she want to laugh along and agree, or did she want to call out Tsukimi on her increasingly unbecoming behavior? It was much easier to fall into the prior. It was the type of response she always resorted to, after all, but she lacked the energy for even that. Her change in demeanor didn't go unnoticed by the captain, and soon the tension was at least partially released as she let out a sigh, coupled with a quick pat on Eri's shoulder. They took off toward the building, so I suspect they ran inside. If you're so keen on seeking out their help, you can start there, I suppose. And as usual, Tsukimi deemed the conversation finished and turned away from before Eri could reply. All Eri could do was look up in exasperation. She supposed the she supposed she would just have to scour the school and find them. I suppose I'll start with the roof, Eri thought with a sigh. Eri thought it an odd choice of accessory for someone like Ashikaga. Fall Guys. I've never played it, but I watched my sister play it. She always rages. She'd only noticed it recently, but it was hard to miss on the few occasions they crossed paths. The new addition was a pretty character, perhaps from a magical girl show, affixed to her phone. Eri once thought she could recognize that character from her childhood, and with that, perhaps strike up a conversation, but her recollection, uh, un- entirely, oh my gosh, ultimately, I'm sorry, my brain just turns off, failed her. It's a cat. These facts aside, the charm in question was now held in the mouth of a cat, which was perched right by the school's front door. There was no time to think. Eri shoved the snacks into her pockets, and darted after it. Hatsune Miku. It reminds me of Sylveon. Um, she called out in a sweet voice as she could muster, which became difficult considering her increasing worry of the charm being swallowed whole. At times it would pause, and the moment she thought she might lay hands on it, it slipped mere paces away, in an almost mocking manner, difficult not to take personally. Finally it disappeared behind the corner of the building. Closing her mind to her senses, she ran with reckless abandon forward. Dashing past those classmates who'd informed her of the occult club's existence this morning, and then past Sakai and Takeda themselves, who seemed to be running in the opposite direction, the teacher still hot on their trails. What is going on? At last, she stopped behind the school, where she realized both that she'd run a full circle around the campus perimeter, and that the cat was no longer anywhere in sight. Eri was unwilling to surrender, but she simply couldn't move another step, and so leaned against the wall to catch her breath. When Eri thought she could finally continue onwards, her face wrinkled in pain as she felt the pangs of an oncoming stomachache. She did her best to ignore it, but in an instant her mind started flashing toward the possible suspects behind the sudden attack. Well, she thought, that much should be obvious. She was referring, of course, to the lunch her brother delivered that morning. She checked the food herself, but wasn't poison meant to be inconspicuous? It took a moment to realize how silly she was being. Masaru wasn't by any means a bad kid. Would he be the type to play some prank on her? It was then that it was all caught up to her, that is, a wave of anxiety of magnitude that, at least as far as she could recall then, Eri knew not whether she'd ever experienced before. Her eyes darted around her, as her chest tightened to an almost painful degree. At first she thought all she needed was some water, but things quickly spiraled out of control, her mastery of her breathing, second nature since birth, slipping away. She didn't quite collapse, but fell to her knees, fast enough for any onlooker, had they been there, so easily mistake the motion as such. In that state of can't read. Device is at 1%. Oh, bye! Thank you for stopping by. Um, desperately attempted. Wait. In a state of panic, she, in a manner not dissimilar to just moments prior, desperately attempted to piece together um, why this might be happening. This was Koizumi Eri, the tiger of the track team who, with her one-track mind, was meant to single-handedly put their name on the map, at least according to herself. A stomach ache is one thing, but how could something as measly and intangible as stress get in her way? She's never been as happy as she is now. She's never found something she could so readily put her all in. She adores running, so why? She thought of the faces of her teammates. In the dark void of her mind, something about them seemed off. The sensation of being completely alone, no matter how ridiculous, absurd, or far from the truth it was, wouldn't leave her. In those miserable few seconds, which almost felt like an eternity, she, at least physically, truly was alone, and it was in that solitude that the core truth of everything revealed itself to her. Eri had denied it systematically, up to the point in time, but in such a time of vulnerability, the floodgates were battered, allowing those unwanted feelings to seep through. The burden of the track team, of its mocking members, of its failures, uh, consistent failures to reach its old heights, all clogged up her vision, suffocating her semi-literally. Vestiges of hatred swarmed up in her, and her mind gave way to the voice, the ugly thoughts of her heart, so long ignored. Why is everything on me? Can't they put in a quarter of the time I put in? How long do I have to do this until someone appreciates my efforts? Is everyone conspiring against me? For once she allowed the all-too-human sense of self-indulgence tar the life she'd built up, and to her shame it felt good to put the burdens on others. She wasn't the one messing up, it was those who couldn't be bothered to put away the equipment themselves. It was those who made every excuse not to attend practice, those who groaned in annoyance whenever she attempted to psych them up. Everything felt so twisted in this strange reality that she couldn't help but smile, though her breathing showed few signs of slowing down. At some point, and this was somewhat dramatic of her, this she would readily admit today, she believed that she might be breathing her very last breaths, which only made her body gasp for air faster. She thought she might use those final moments to physically utter all the curses against her teammates that she could, when suddenly a quiet voice rang onto her ears. Koizumi-san? She recognized the owner of the voice right away. It was soft, muted, even barely audible over the sound of Eri's drumming heartbeat. However, in the expanse of darkness that was the jail of her own mind, it was the only thing grounding her. Still gasping for breath, Eri's voice came out pinched and hoarse. It's passing, just hold on. Despite Eri's eyes being squeezed shut, she could sense that person nodding beside her, and soon only the sound of the wind and trees filled Eri's ears as she laid there on the ground, a warm presence waiting beside her. Once Eri opened her eyes, Ashikaga's face appeared in Eri's field of vision, her expression hardly denoting concern. That wasn't of any consequence to Eri for the simple fact that in Ashikaga's arms, that uh, that cat sat, looking perfectly relaxed and content. Somehow, in spite of the circumstances, white-hot shame didn't overtake Eri's body like it would have if anyone else witnessed her in that state. Rather, Eri's face, which had previously been frozen, relaxed instantaneously, as though she and the other girl were on the same page. Suddenly, Eri and some strange feeling wait, Eri had some strange feeling that they'd been friends this whole year, though they hadn't even exchanged words. Of course, this was all imagined per her typical habit of getting ahead of herself, and she, now wanting nothing more than to continue their conversation, quickly answered with a weak smile. Thank you. It was just a stomach ache. It's gone, I think. Do you need to go to the infirmary? Ari shook her head. She'd already begun to regain her composure and senses, making quick work of wiping out the doubts that'd been tearing away at her. More importantly, that cat. You should at least get out of this heat. You're sweating. Ah, that's from chasing it around. I'm glad it wasn't a wasted effort. Ashikaga looked at the cat, which had climbed out of her arms and was now using her shoulders as a pillow. I see. Ashikaga's voice was unaffected and emotionless, and yet it had this soothing effect, as though it was the one thing Eri needed at that point. Finally, she remembered the ice candy in her pockets. In the pit of her stomach, she felt the upcoming gesture could be some symbolic way to usher Ashikaga back into the track team. Eri felt Ashikaga, the abandoner, could be the savior to bring the team back to life. As if offering this childish snack could produce the miracle of Ashikaga quitting smoking and returning their team to its former, albeit short-lived, glory. Split this with me. Ashikaga blinked. She blinked twice. Twice she blinked before finally taking the candy. Even in her state, Eri perceived Ashikaga's hand and then her lips, quivering slightly, which almost made Eri laugh out loud. About earlier. Sorry. I wasn't avoiding you. I gave off that impression. So, do you recognize me? Eri paid no heed to the embarrassing things coming out of her mouth. At that point, slightly delirious as she still was. Of course, Kazumi Eri. The one who always loses things. Yeah, that's right. That's me. Eri laughed I can't say the word, oh my god, deprecatingly. Um, of course, nobody thought of her as the tiger of the track team. She was just seen as an airhead. I'm one to talk, Ashikaga said, gesturing to the charm in her hand. You really helped me out. Thank you. Eri blinked up at her, and soon enough a genuine smile erupted from her chest. It was as if the release of that glee was what made way for air to freely enter her lungs. Whatever help she provided or didn't provide, that moment gave Eri the reassurance she'd been needing for longer than she had allowed herself to believe. To realize. Without another word, Ashikaga lifted Eri to her feet and began to help her into the shade of the school. With a satisfying crack, Eri split the strawberry-flavored ice candy in half. She handed one to Ashikaga, who, rather than put it in her mouth immediately as Eri did, seemed to be enjoying the cool surface on her palm, instead letting the cold droplets of condensation drip from her fingers. Ashikaga looked down the empty hallway before further explaining the situation. That cat followed me back to the school and stole that charm out of my hand. I'm sorry if it's caused you trouble. Huh? It's not your fault. No, I should have held onto the charm tighter. Ashikaga scratched at her chin. I never expected him to pounce at me. It's because I got too close to him yesterday. I'm still not quite. The reminder of Ashikaga's story quickly exceeded the amount of words Eri heard come out of her mouth during the entirety of their time in the track team together. As it happened, Ashikaga found a cat stuck in a tree the day prior. Much to her chagrin, I've never heard that word before, she never learned how to climb a tree, and so tried several different methods to secure him. First, she stacked some unused jumping boxes, which did turn out to be left abandoned by a forgetful Eri, but that still didn't provide the height she needed. The track and field equipment shed was left unlocked, so she borrowed a few more tools. You tried to pole vault to the top of the tree? No, I was using it to prod the cat down. As you can guess, that didn't work. He's a very stubborn cat. That's when I put the spikes on. Using track spikes to climb a tree, huh? Apparently, it was that day that Ashikaga acquired a new necessary skill, with the help of the spiked shoes, of course. By the time the cat was let down, Eri had just locked the equipment room, and being unable to access it, Ashikaga hid the gear in an inconspicuous spot to be retrieved the next day. That was what Ashikaga had been looking out over the rooftop for. There's an umbrella on the board. um, for to find the right timing while avoiding any unnecessary run-ins with track members. Instantly, it was only a bit later that the cat she'd saved returned to the school and stole her charm. That's the gist of it. It sounds like I have even more to apologize for. No one was inconvenienced, really. Except, I guess, Hiragi. Hiragi? Oh, just a first year who won't participate unless she gets to use that exact vaulting pole. The captain always tells her off for that. I'm not sure I've ever told anyone this, but it couldn't hurt now. During competitions, I always wore a specific set of socks. Ashikaga looked up as if recalling a fond memory. Yes, the holy pair, I called it. As Also, I always ate eggs or rice that night before each race. Huh? I wasn't expecting you to be so superstitious, Eri said, tipping her head. Of course, Sakai's earlier claim regarding Ashikaga's absolute skepticism towards ghosts factored into that preconception. Rituals and superstitions are two different things. Superstitions are dangerous to rely on, but rituals are perfectly harmless. Ashikaga raised a finger knowingly. Eri pressed her lips together and nodded, trying to suppress the laugh. You know, that doesn't really differentiate them. Ashikaga cleared her throat. All of that aside, what were you doing out there? Koizumi-san practiced uh, hasn't practice started? Oh, actually, I was looking for your clubmates. I wanted to thank them with their ice candies, but they were missing by the time I came back. I see. I can give them a call if you'd like. Once Ashikaga made her call, she relayed to Eri the president's message, which went as follows. We're in we're in hiding right now. We think we may have figured out the perpetrator behind the cigarettes. Another Ashikaga, funnily enough, smoking in a bathroom stall. Koizumi brought us snacks. Tell her thanks, but you two had better finish them up before they melt. Also, to where we are, I'll give you a hint, between the lines. With a sigh, Ashikaga closed her flip phone and stashed it away, obediently starting to eat her ice candy, as the president suggested. She then shrugged at Eri, who'd managed to hear the whole conversation. She'd listened to the entirety of Ashikaga's retelling to ensure her ears weren't deceiving her. I don't mean to sound rude, and you must asked this a lot, but how did you get caught up in that club in the first place? Don't you ever miss it? Running from out the classroom window, Ari watched leaves dance through the air as a breeze passed through those trees. 1 second. Okay, I'm ending stream for the day. I have things to do. It's just gonna be a short one. But thank you for those who can. And I'm gonna go raid Emily now. But yeah, we'll finish this another day. Bye bye. Let me save.